Coming up on Time for Hope.
Think about how many women wouldn't have abortions. Think about how many women wouldn't go into depression and suicide. Think about the church being a place where we can say, hey, look, you made a mistake. And you got to take that up with God. But while you're taking that up with God, come on in and be a part of our family.
Join Dr. Freda Cruz, licensed professional counselor, and her guests as they provide practical solutions to real-life problems on Time for Hope.
You have just joined Time for Hope, a faith-based mental health program. I'm Dr. Freda Cruz, your host, and today, for the third week in a row, I am having a discussion with author and ordained youth minister Andy Braner about his book, An Exposé on Teen Sex and Dating. I have been so carried away with this subject, knowing how critical an issue it is, that I have actually chosen to wait until this show today to close out with Andy on this subject. I also am so impressed with his book and how he handles this issue that I greatly encourage you to get a copy. So if you haven't already called or written or emailed for a copy of Andy's book, I certainly encourage you to do that. And I'm going to turn to Andy, and we're going to finish our discussion today, and then later, before the show is over, I'm going to be interviewing some local youth directors about what's going on in their ministries, and I feel we will find some of the same issues as I have been discussing with Andy. So I'm encouraging you to stay with us throughout the whole show. And Andy, again, I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your agreeing to stay with me. And I'm going to be really careful how I put this out. Could I safely say that this is a hot issue?
Well done. Well done.
Because I know the teens use that word hot different. Well, adults are using it, by the way.
Absolutely.
But they mean it differently. It means different things to different people, right?
Right. You know, they've totally taken the nomenclature of old and switched it around, and it totally means different. So like you said before, you have to be real careful how you talk to teenagers.
So if a guy says a girl is hot, what does he mean?
He means she's pretty good looking.
Pretty good looking. What's wrong with being pretty good looking? You do bring out in your book about girls realizing that they need enough clothing on, don't they?
Yeah, we talk about that a lot, about you know, a guy looks at a girl and by the way that she's dressed gets cues about how available or not available she is, and a girl thinks differently, like we've talked before. The girl thinks, well, it's trendy, and you know, to be honest with you, you can't find a whole lot of clothes at the department store today that aren't very revealing, and so you have to really search for modest clothing today. But we're telling girls, hey, this is what guys are thinking, and we're telling guys, this is what girls are thinking. Now let's come together here and let us understand that we got to respect each other. And so that's one of the principles we have at our place in Colorado. We say, guys, this isn't like at home. We're not going to talk about girls the way you talk about girls at home. We're not going to put them down the way that you talk about them. We're not going to talk about them in a sexual manner like you talk about them at home. We're going to respect the ladies. And ladies, likewise. This isn't a place like it's at home where you're going to put down the guys or demean the guys or make them feel insignificant. We're going to respect men. And so when we start that playing field of respect, all of a sudden things like dress become non-issues.
Do you, is it troubled teens and college students that come to you, or how do they end up at your camp?
They, traditionally, they've just heard about it by word of mouth, but they can go to campkivu.com is our website, and they can see all the activities we do, and if they want to come, then it's kind of a first come, first serve.
In their summers, or?
We do 2 weeks program, so it's a 2 week at a time program that we run them through this curriculum of biblical worldview training. We take them on all the outdoor Colorado adventures, and we teach them about sexuality. We teach them what it means to really uphold biblical dating principles.
And that's Ahava Ministries.
Ahava Ministries, and the camp is called Kivu, K-I-V-U.
Well, we're certainly going to be putting you on our referral list and making sure that there is a place that young people can go. Now, you wanted to talk about this prayer request, the 16-year-old that's pregnant with twins, and that ties right into your whole, you have a whole chapter in your book on forgiveness.
Yeah.
And so here we have, I'm assuming it's a mom that wrote us this prayer request, or sent this prayer request one way or the other. And so what are your suggestions? What would you do if it were your daughter, Andy?
So I grew up in a Christian school, and I went to church ever since I was born. And we know what happens when a girl shows up in a Christian environment and she says, I'm pregnant. There's not a whole lot of room for her in that place. And whether it be by human interaction or whatever, a lot of girls that I talk to feel like they've been discarded after they've made a mistake. And I didn't realize that until we had one of the counselors that was going to work for us. We interview kids from all over the world, and one of the questions we ask them, what is your view on premarital sex? And so this one girl, she had it all perfect, all articulated very well. She calls us 2 months before the camp season starts, and she says, I can't come work for you. And we're like, well, we've got a contract. You sign a contract. Don't back out on your contract. Tell us what's the deal. And she goes, I can't. This isn't the summer for me. God's calling me somewhere else. She was using every excuse in the book. Until my wife was on the other end of the phone, she said, why can't you come work? And she goes, because I just found out I'm pregnant. Silent, you know. And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do now? And my wife did something really cool. She said, and this is just like I think what Jesus would do. She goes, you made a mistake, and you made a mistake with this guy, and you need to make sure that you take this up with God, then you take this up with the guy, take it up with your parents, and once it's over, you only have one chance in your life to have your first baby. So once you cross those thresholds, let's celebrate now. Now you're having a first baby, so you need diapers, I got diapers left over. You need strollers, I got strollers. If that guy's not around anymore, you just know I'll walk you through what pregnancy's gonna be like, and I'll come sit with you in the hospital if he doesn't show up. And so my wife just starts giving and giving and giving. You can hear the sobs on the other end of the line, because the girl felt for the first time that somebody came in her time of need and embraced her and said, all right, we all make mistakes. Yours just gonna happen in 9 months and you're gonna have a kid. But that's still something that we need to forgive and celebrate, and then help a girl through that stuff. And so yeah, I think we need to reach out.
You gave the story in your book, and I loved it, about the way they brought the adulterer to Jesus.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, if you're guiltless, then you cast the first stone. And he said to her, you know, go and sin no more. And we look at forgiveness. That doesn't mean we just condone everything,
right.
Andy.
Absolutely.
We're not talking about condoning. Nope. We're talking about going and sinning no more, repenting, right. Seeking God's forgiveness, and not continuing in that behavior, right. Leaving it, whatever. In that process is redemption also from, like your wife, and one is not mutually exclusive. In other words, you can have both. Both are truths. Right. Are we getting hold of the truth of what your wife did, and how she handled that, and how we should handle a situation like this prayer request? This girl needs support.
She needs help.
She needs help. She needs support. Guess what? She's not aborting, apparently.
And
so
awesome.
that's awesome, isn't it? So she's got financial struggles, and she's depressed. But that's when the church needs to move in these situations.
If we rallied around like that, man, think about how many women wouldn't have abortions. Think about how many women wouldn't go into depression and suicide. Think about the church being a place where we can say, hey, look, you made a mistake, and you got to take that up with God. But while you're taking that up with God, come on in and be a part of our family.
I'm still with you, and there were other things we were going to talk about. We were going to talk about guys that struggle with homosexual attractions, right. And I know some that struggle with the attraction that never actually go through with it. But you say they have problems, and you've got them outlined in your book, you know. So they have feminine characteristics. That doesn't make them gay, but they get categorized sometimes like that, doesn't it? But then I think I'm going to end with you, because we're going to be fitting in some of your material, and we're going to be consulting with other youth directors for this third show on this subject. And I came up with this out of your book as kind of a closure. Only a genuine relationship with the Creator God can provide true safety and security that teens are longing for. You agree with me on that?
That's
Bottom line, they date to learn to socialize with members of the opposite sex. And that also, not just socialize, but getting into their psyche, getting into, as you said, the difference, getting into what you see in them that would make for a permanent partner, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That you would want to permanently hook up with in a legal way. That's a good word. I hadn't thought about that. But not just running to the altar to have sex.
Right.
We're not for that, are we?
No, ma'am.
But we are for no premarital sex.
Right.
But don't just go to the altar to have sex, because that won't
That's
make...
a whole other set of issues.
That's another whole set of issues, isn't it? So, first of all, and bottom line, if they have a genuine relationship with Jesus Christ, it's going to help them with all of their other behaviors, including their sexual behavior.
That's it. Loving the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And to love that neighbor, that dating relationship, like you love yourself, like God loves you. And then all of a sudden the core permeates everything.
And then when you get married, going to 1 Corinthians 13 and putting all of that into practice.
What does love really mean? That's
right.
right.
What does love really mean? And you bring out in your book, you know, sure, there are the hormones. There's male, there's female. God created sex. It's of God, isn't it?
Of
it's
God.
not dirty.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. But that's not all marriage is about.
Right.
And so forth, and neither is that what dating is all about either. So do you feel that we've rounded this off?
I think we've done a good job. You've done a great job.
And that our viewers have a handle on the truth that we're trying to get out, and even the hope that we're trying to put out, and also the challenge.
Yeah.
We haven't left the parents nor the teenagers without a challenge, have we?
No, ma'am. Yep. Parents be parents. Kids, come on. Think about the future. Yep.
Well, it's been great having you.
Thank
I'm
you so
saying
much,
it
Dr.
again. It's really been a pleasure and a treat having you. I've been wanting to discuss this subject a long time, and when your book came along, I thought, oh,
here
boy,
we go.
here we go. Lord bless you, give you a safe trip home, and you know, I'm not going to tell them about that book I suggested you write next, but when you write it, you'll come back and you let me know. The Lord bless your ministry.
Thank you, Dr.
And
Appreciate it.
again, you are, I have no doubt you're right where God would have you, and doing, it sounds like you're doing a great job at
Very
it.
much.
A recent article appeared in our local newspaper, the Spartanburg Herald-Journal, authored by Carla K. Johnson for the AP, that was headed, "Study Finds More Teen Boys Using Condoms." I can remember when very few, if any, newspapers would have published the article referring to condoms. Before the sexual revolution in this country, our inbred Christian moral standards kept a lid on explicit language, newspaper reports, TV, and movies related to overt sexual behavior. Johnson began with a surprising 80% of teenage boys say they are using condoms the first time they have sex. Johnson also related that a government survey found the increased condom use by teen boys a powerful sign that decades of efforts to change young people's sexual behavior are taking hold. She further related that according to experts, this may mean that boys are taking more responsibility for contraception, or they are protecting themselves from sexually transmitted diseases. I would be one of the first to say that if a teen boy or girl has decided to engage in premarital sex, that they should do so responsibly, taking every precaution to remain sexually clean. But I would add that preventing unwanted pregnancies should be a priority also. As a counselor, I have been asked by parents who have just discovered that their teenager is sexually active what they should do. The teen's age and how long he or she has been engaging in this biblically immoral behavior will determine if discipline can be enacted that could potentially stop the behavior. If the teen has been sexually active a good while, will mean that there is the possibility parents will be unable to persuade them to become abstinent. Under these circumstances, my answer would be to encourage consistent protection and birth control, while at the same time reminding a teen that the Creator God says it is sin, and sin always carries consequences with it. Christian parents have the privilege of taking the situation to their Heavenly Father in prayer, asking Him for the Holy Spirit to make their teen aware that they are breaking God's law and that they need to repent of their sin, asking God for forgiveness and the power to abstain from their wrongful sexual behavior. Thanks for staying with us on Time for Hope. We've been talking about teens, sex, and dating with Andy Braner, and we're taking a switch. I have asked one of our local youth ministers to come and share with me some of his experiences. He's been in Spartanburg a good number of years ministering to teens, and I think he's going to have some insights and a lot to add to what we have been talking about. And Steve, it is great having you on Time for Hope.
It's good to be here, Dr. Cruz.
Known you a good while. You've had great influence on at least 3 of my grandsons, and there's no telling. I know that you've made an impact on the youth in Spartanburg, and I've always appreciated knowing you were there.
Well, thank you.
So where do the parents fit in all of this?
It's interesting because of the types of kids that I work with and know, and it's probably just like culture. There are families who are very involved, spiritually, religious people involved with their church and have high moral standards and those kind of things, and they wrestle with what their kids are dealing with and struggling with. And I think on the other end of the spectrum, you probably have some who, for them, it's not a big deal to them, and that runs the gamut across the board. I think as kids get older and decisions are being made, there's probably much more emphasis on making sure that unwanted pregnancies aren't taking place, that sexually transmitted diseases aren't happening. But it's a wide spectrum, I think. I think probably a lot of parents are probably dealing with maybe some of their own history, things that maybe they feel very guilty about, things maybe they were very afraid of, and aren't real sure exactly how to engage that conversation with their kids. And frankly, it's not an easy conversation to have with anybody.
No,
and to have it with your children, it's a different thing altogether. And I'm finding, with children that are nearing that age, having to have those conversations and trying to find ways to talk about it in a way that it doesn't just sound like it's the old person coming with his old rules telling me all these things I shouldn't do, but somebody trying to help navigate, steer, guide, give them a vision for a life that is all they want it to be.
The answer is a relationship with Jesus Christ. and hearing the word and doing the word. Even though they hear it differently maybe and do it differently, it's still, and I really appreciate something I picked up on from you, that you try to listen to them apparently and be where they are, and so that it can be put out in a way that they understand it. My grandson leaned over to me Sunday morning when we were in church, and he said, Nana, that's what I like about his preaching. He makes it so easy to understand. And there is a need for that. You agree with me on that?
Oh, yes, ma'am. And fortunately, and this might go into that parent question a little bit too. What our youth ministry does, I'm involved with Young Life, which is an outreach ministry to high school folks. And our main kind of focus is building relationships with kids, going where they are and spending time with them, which puts us in a unique place to parents because, parents they can't just be a friend. They need to be a parent.
Well, I like that. We hit that hard already.
Yeah. And so, hopefully in some ways we can be auxiliaries to parents in that, we're coming alongside of young people wherever they are. And we're kind of wanting to speak that truth to kids who, for whatever reason, are disinterested in it or maybe wounded by it and are looking for some answers. And building that relationship to begin to hear and to begin to speak. And I think for parents, I'm learning this in my own life because I'm having to do this, is how important it is to be a parent, but at the same time to be building that relationship and try to find ways to communicate and talk to our kids about the stuff that's going on inside of them and what they're dealing with.
They have to listen, Steve. They have to learn to listen to do that. And then, Josh McDowell, of course, says rules without relationship brings rebellion.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we can't do that as parents. We don't recommend that for parents, do we?
He does such a great thing, and I think I picked this up from him a long time ago, but talked about how, there are these precepts, there are the rules themselves, but they're based on a principle. And that principle is for our best and our good, and those are based on the person of who God is. And so as I deal with students, as I deal with my own kids, I always want to remember that. It's not just a rule. It's a great rule, and it's an important rule, and I can see why that rule is there. But it's built on a deeper principle, and that deeper principle is about solid relationships, about how we treat people, how we treat them physically, verbally, emotionally, visually, all those things. And the reason that is behind all of that is this God who is love. And what all of that is, it's a counterfeit of what God really wants us to experience. We want to take the shortcut and experience something now that feels good now perhaps, but in the long run brings a lot of pain. Or do we say, do I abstain in the short term to hold out for something that's going to be better in the long term? And it all goes back, I think, to the person of who God is in Jesus Christ. He's not holding out on us. It's not like He's telling us not to do this because I don't like you. He's saying, look, this is a powerful thing. It's the second of the 5 commands that deal with human relationships. So the next one is our anger and murder. This is the one that deals with sex, and it's such a big one. And He's saying to us, this is really powerful, and it's really good, and I made it, and it's for you. But it's dangerous because it's so good.
It be like a river kept within the bounds.
Or a fire. It's great in the fireplace, terrible in your living room. Exactly.
Great. Thank you so much,
thank
Steve,
you
for coming and giving us some of your time. I know you're a busy man, and I know you do a great work again. I know that in Spartanburg. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much. It's been great being here.
Lord bless.
You too.
As I close out today's show, I want to express my gratitude to you for staying with us on the same subject for 3 weeks. As I have already stated, I believe that the issues are critical and that parents need to be informed, grandparents need to be informed, teens and college students need to know the truth that if they're going to survive, as it were, in a healthy way, survive the issues that they're being confronted with, that they must know the truth and they must face the reality of their situations. And the truth is that they need a vital relationship with Jesus Christ. And I hope within the last 3 weeks that we've been able to get that truth out. That's the hope. That's the hope for our generation of teens and college students. And then I have a couple of notes to share with you. One of them having to do with a note of appreciation for Time for Hope, and then I'll also have a prayer request to share with you. Dear Dr. Freda, I just wanted to let you know how much I love Time for Hope. That is great encouragement to me. It is one of my favorite programs. I've learned so much from the authors you have as guests, and we certainly do appreciate the guests that come on Time for Hope. It has really broadened my horizons, and that really says what the vision we have for Time for Hope, the vision that God gave me, and even it includes our mission for Time for Hope. And then I have a prayer request. Dear Dr. Freda, please pray for my 19-year-old granddaughter. She left home and is in a lesbian relationship now. She stopped going to church and has strayed away from her relationship with God. Pray for this relationship to end and that she will come home to the Lord. And if you get a copy of Andy's book, you will find a discussion on homosexuality. He is very compassionate in his discussion of the subject, and he, of course, would have us be compassionate with this person, this grandmother that's concerned about her granddaughter. So I would encourage you again to get a copy of Andy's book and see what he has to say about this. But what we're going to do is pray with this grandmother for this granddaughter, and we will do that with any prayer request that comes in, and we encourage you to send them in. We also encourage you to be one of those viewers that can write us a note of appreciation and tell us how much you learn from Time for Hope, because that's part of our vision. It's educating people, and that's what we've been trying to do for the last 3 weeks on this subject. And also I would encourage you to consider, if you're already helping us financially, we appreciate it, and if you haven't, we would certainly appreciate hearing that God has impressed you to help us with this ministry financially.
We hope that today's Time for Hope program has been helpful and inspirational to you and your family. As a token of our appreciation for joining us, we would like to offer you a one-page fact sheet which contains additional information on today's topic. Log on to our website at timeforhope.org to view and print our fact sheet. Or you can call us at 1-800-669-9133 and we will send it to you free of charge. To get a copy of today's book for a suggested donation of $13 US or more, which includes shipping and handling, log on to our website at timeforhope.org. You may also call us at 1-800-669-9133, or you can write us at P.O. Box 2169, Spartanburg, South Carolina, 29304. If you would like a DVD copy of the program you have just seen, log on to our website at timeforhope.org. Join us again next week when Dr. Cruz and her guests will be discussing another insightful topic. Until next time, have a great week, and remember, it is time for hope.